Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. This time around we will be fully magnetizing the Tyrannofex kit, aka the Tervigon. So same thing with that we did with the Hive Tyrant. We're just going to make sure it can run with all the weapon options as both the Tyrannofex and the Tervigon. Remember to read through your manual so you can plan ahead and put magnets where they need to be, and you don't accidentally glue something together that you now have to try and cut apart. Both kits are sharing the same legs, the same body, and the same middle arm. So what we're going to do is we're going to build it up. If you're following along, all the way up to stage 1E, and then we're going to start doing the magnetism. We're going to leave his middle arms off for now, just to give us more room. You'll see in a bit what we're going to do with the goo belly for the Tervigon. Everything that has multiple components you can put together. That's not a big deal. So like the guns that are in two pieces, the arms and the heads, those can all be glued together. So at this point you should have something that looks like this. We got the legs on it. We have all the spikes glued on the legs. We have the body. And we have all, whatever you call these, glued on. The only thing we didn't glue on, step 1D. So this part right here, this carapace, didn't actually glue that on. I put it in place when I was gluing the body together to make sure I got the fitment right. But I'm leaving that unglued for now. So what we're gonna do, the next step in the booklet is to glue the Tyrannofex's spikes on his belly. The only problem with just gluing those on is this is where the Tervigon filled belly attaches to. And there's not like little posts or anything. Basically, you just glue it over those sockets if you wanted to build the Tervigon. So what we're going to do instead, and I'm sure you could, you know, not bother with the spikes or just glue them on and not put these pieces on if you ran them as a Tyrannofex. But I like to be able to, you know, switch everything over, make it look exactly how it's supposed to in the Games Workshop pictures. So what we're going to do, we're going to drill out these 6 holes, and we're going to put magnets on the inside, which is why I left the front carapace open. So if we need to, which we're probably going to need to, we'll get some green stuff or milliput, and we'll drill holes through. We'll put milliput there, and we'll cut the ball end off the tip, the socket end of the spike, and we'll put a magnet on there, and we'll make them look all flush. And on the inside, we'll have milliput to stop them from going anywhere, and for something solid to super glue the magnets to. And then when we get around to doing this part, I don't know if you can really see, but we'll already have the magnets in there, and they'll be fairly deep, because we'll make sure the spikes sit flush and both magnets will be buried, the one attached to the spike and the one inside the body. And we will kind of slowly build up something, maybe. We'll see when we get there what we kind of have to do in order to just use basically those 3 magnets, 6 in total, to pull this body piece on and off. And we will have to do it in 2 pieces. So we will also need some magnets along here, just because it's almost like a tapered in. So it'll be really hard to try and get this on and off. Like it already is, if it's pressed together. You can't really just pull it off. Like some of the things in the Hive Tyrant, like the hips and stuff, they came out like pretty easy. This This we're gonna have to do in 2 pieces, but that's okay, and it's a learning adventure, so stay tuned and we'll get to it. Start the pilot holes on the 6 spike sockets on his abdomen, and then we're gonna drill them out with the 5/64 drill bit. We're just gonna drill all the way through. And put milliput on the inside. If I were to do it again, I would leave his legs off to get better access to the rear abdomen holes. Sometimes you have to make the holes bigger by just angling the drill bit and kind of wiggling it around. And there we have a tested side. I'll show you more in depth on how I did it, but got the magnets in there. They're all magnetized to the abdomen. Just put the spike in the socket and look for the angle you want and try to match the cut you want to that angle. I'm going to try and match the one on the other side. That's why I'm kind of holding them side by side. And of course, when you got it to how you want, glue the magnet on. I just cut the tip of the ball part of the socket for the spike off on mine, more to just flatten it down and give more surface area for the magnet to stick. I didn't cut much of it off at all. And then drill in the next socket. You start with the pilot hole, the 5/64/2 mil, the 1/8 or 3 mil, and then the 13/64 5 mil. We'll put a 5x1 mil magnet in there. I like to put a dot so when I eyeball it like that, I can kind of see where the dot is in relation. And then in this case, I knew I wanted to go above the dot, so that's where I start the pilot hole. And then we're gonna go same thing to the 2 mil, 3 mil, 5 mil. So 5/64, 1/8, 13/64. When you're trying to drill in a component like this that is split like right directly down the middle, basically, you got to make sure it's glued together really well. I would recommend using sprue goo. There's a lot of recipes and YouTube videos made about it. I'm sure you could find them easily. So you got your spike with your glued on magnet, and put an extra magnet on there for the one that'll be glued in the torso. We're gonna pack milliput in our case till it's kind of poking through the socket. We're gonna take the spike with the 2 magnets, push it all the way in, and try and match it to the other front one we did. You pull it out, should have a nice flat surface to glue that inner magnet to. Now we're just going to repeat the process now for the middle spike. Push the spike with 2 magnets in there. I like to wet the magnets so they don't stick to the milliput as hard and create a nice flat surface. I didn't really get good footage of the third one because the leg is in the way, but you'll have to take my word for it. And then we're just doing the neck here, so in behind, same thing, we'll put some milliput through. We're going to use a 5x1 millimeter magnet and use something non-magnetic to push it in to the hole you previously drilled. I'm just going to use one of the necks without a magnet in it to push the magnet in and seat it there and make it conform to the round socket as best you can with a flat magnet. And then for the head, I didn't want to pack the whole head completely full of milliput, so what I'm doing is I'm not shoving it right in there. I'm kind of putting it on the edge, wetting down like a toothpick or a skewer, and kind of trying to press it against the sides and not like back towards like the open cavity of the head. And then I'm just going to build it up around all sides, or at least like 3 sides. Again, just using the toothpick that is wetted down so the toothpick doesn't stick. And when you get something like that, you can start to think about pressing your magnet and make sure you always double check your polarity. And then for this situation, it's easy enough to put it on your hobby knife, press it in, put your finger over it, and just pull the hobby knife away. Then I'm just using a skewer to press it flat so it's more or less flush in the neck socket. We'll come back to the arms here. The first one I tried to drill, I want to put a big magnet so the gun isn't like falling down to the ground or having to rest on the ground. So I'm going to use the 6x2mm magnets. So tried to drill out the arm socket, but it's a little too big. So just cut about like 2 mils off the tip and glue your magnets on. Of course, checking polarity throughout the whole process. And center the magnet on the socket. We're going to drill out the body part of the socket, again, with the pilot hole, the hobby knife, and then the 2mm 5/64 drill bit, the 1/8 or 3mm drill bit, the 13/64 or 5mm drill bit, the 15/64 or 6mm drill bit, and the 1/4 inch 6.3. This will just give me more flexibility on how I want to position the magnets inside the arm socket. Be very careful if you're going to go this big on the arm sockets. The plastic above gets really thin, and you got to be really careful that you don't break it off. But I was able to go up to the 1/4 inch or 6.3mm drill bit, and it worked out really well. We're going to create the sockets for the arms next, so I'm just using a little sticky tack on the sockets of the gun. Put the gun in there, you can see the magnet protruding through, and then attach the gun to the left arm with the sticky tack, and then just press some of that milliput in there, shaped around the magnet. And I use a toothpick, or you can use a skewer, just dipped in water to kind of get a good press in behind there around the magnet. Trying to make sure the front sockets on the gun stay in place as I push it around. Get a nice tight fit. And then here I use like a more square skewer. I can just get a little more pressure and really basically create the perfect mold for the setups I have right now. I'll take the arms out one at a time and dip the magnet in water and press it back in to get that nice flat surface in the milliput, and the milliput isn't trying to hang on to the magnet as you pull the arm socket out. So dip it in water, press it back in, both sides for good measure. Make sure the front sockets line up, hold it where you want, and then you can pull the arms away. By this time, the milliput is dry for the abdomen spikes, so I just use a toothpick, a little super glue on it, and kind of work it around in there. Then I got my magnets polarity checked, put it over the hole, put your thumb over it, and then with these we'll have to press it down using, again, a toothpick to kind of to bottom it out. I do that little swirl motion just to make sure all the corners are pressed in as far as they need to be. And then we're going to go ahead and do the second one, same thing, super glue, put the magnet in, and then press it all the way to the bottom. This one kind of gets a little cockeyed on me. The toothpick wasn't strong enough, so I ended up having to use the drill bit to kind of press it the rest of the way. It was there's enough glue and a tight enough fit that it didn't stick to the bit, so I was able to push it in all the way like that. Make sure the milliput or green stuff is dry, or whatever two-part sculpting epoxy you want, and we'll glue in the magnets. Use a toothpick to not overdo it. Get your polarity right, and then use something non-metallic to bottom the magnet out. Keep your finger on the back side of the milliput so you don't break or damage the milliput. I'm going to be gluing both the arms together at the point they attach to the gun. I'm just using some sprue goo to do this. It's a great product. Basically like creates plastic almost. So I'm holding both the shoulders in there and trying to line it up good. I ended up kind of messing this part up. I didn't really get the angle right for the magnets on the shoulders, but I'll show you later in the video. And I might have to make a second video on how to fix that particular one. We're gonna move on to the belly for the Tervigon. So I just have the one side on, seeing what kind of gap we have underneath. And I'm gonna mark 2 areas with a Sharpie. I decided using the spike magnets was going to be a little too tricky and take too long. And I want to get this model done, basically, so my buddy can use it against me. So we're going to be building up some milliput where I made those marks, kind of little mountains, and then we're going to stick magnets in the side. So there I'm just seeing how it fits and then transferring the mark to the other side. If you're concerned about the Sharpie messing up your paint job, then just use a dry erase marker and it'll come off, no problem. So I got little mountains kind of made like that at the marks. I'm going to build them up a little more so they can fit a magnet on them nice and easy. So I got the polarity checked. We're just going to literally press the magnets in the milliput. And I'm not going to glue them now. If they end up popping out, once the other side's done, then I'll glue them in place. So you should have something looks like that. Once the one side's dry, you can put some more milliput on the other side. We're going to cover the dry side in water and also the fresh side in water. And we're going to put the extra magnet, accounting for the magnet on the other side, stuck to the magnet that's already in the milliput. We just want everything to be wet because we don't actually want these 2 sides of the milliput to stick together. So we're going to kind of clamp the body together and press the wet milliput into the other milliput to try and create like a 2-part mold almost. I couldn't quite see one of the magnet indentations on the wet side, so I just flipped it over, did a little more pressing, and pulled it apart again, and it looked a lot better.